Good afternoon and hello. My name is Renee D. Waring and I am the founder of Uniquely and Wonderfully Made Ministries. The title of my presentation today is Mental Hospitals - Mental Illness Part 6 R Waring, Warring. My talk today is about the life of Dorothea Lynn Dix, who was an author, activist, and social reformer. My presentations can be viewed on LinkedIn under Renee D. Waring, on Facebook under Waring Communications, LLC, on Twitter under @ReneeWaring, and on YouTube under smallcase Dorothea Lynn Dix was born on April 4, 1802 in Hampton, Maine, and she died on July 17, 1886. Her father's name was Joseph Dix, an itinerant Methodist preacher. He was frequently away from home doing itinerant preaching. Her mother experienced debilitating bouts of depression, leaving Dorothea, who was the oldest child, in charge of taking care of her siblings. Joseph Dix was an alcoholic and also experienced bouts of depression. He taught Dorothea how to read and write. Thus, she developed a lifelong love of books and learning. Dorothea's younger years were filled with unpredictability and loneliness. At the age of 12, she moved to Boston, Massachusetts, to live with her wealthy grandmother, who encouraged Dorothea's interest in education. Dorothea established schools in Boston and Worcester, Massachusetts, designing her curriculum and administering classes as a teenager and young woman. Due to her poor health in the 1820s, her teaching became increasingly sporadic, forcing her to take frequent breaks from her career. She closed her last school in 1836 due to her health. In the same year, Dix went to England with some of her friends. When she returned home a few months later, she had developed an interest in new approaches to treatment for the insane. Dorothea took a job teaching inmates in the East Cambridge, Massachusetts prison. She noticed that the conditions there were abysmal and the treatment of the prisoners were so inhumane that she began fighting at once for improvement of conditions in the prison. At that time, prisons were unregulated and unhygienic. Violent criminals were housed side by side with people who had mental illness. The inmates were often subject to the whims and brutalities of their jailers. Dorothea visited every public and private facility, documenting the conditions of the jails. She then presented her findings to the legislature of Massachusetts, demanding that officials take action to reform conditions. Her reports vividly described the accounts of inmates being flogged, starved, chained, physically and sexually abused by their keepers, and left naked without heat or sanitation. People were shocked by her reports of how inhumanely the prisoners were treated. As a result, people galvanized a movement to improve conditions for the imprisoned and the insane. Dix saw that funds were set aside for expansion of mental health hospitals in Worcester, Massachusetts. She went on to Rhode Island and New York, and eventually across the country, and expanding her movement to Europe and beyond. Dorothea Dix volunteered her services 1 week after the Civil War began in 1861 and served until 1863. She arrived in Washington in April of 1861 and was appointed to organize and outfit the Union Army hospitals and to oversee the vast nursing staff that the war would require. As superintendent of women nurses, she was the first woman to serve in such a high capacity in a federally appointed role. As supplies poured in from voluntary societies across the North, Dix's administrative skills were sorely needed to manage the flow of bandages and clothing as the war wore on. Dix often clashed with Army officials and was widely feared and disliked by her volunteer nurses. She was ousted from her position in the fall of 1863 as a result. After the Civil War, Dix returned to her work as a social reformer. She traveled extensively in Europe because she became disenchanted with her experience during the war. Dix continued to write. Under her guidance, a widespread movement to reform the treatment of mentally ill people arose. Old psychiatric hospitals were redesigned and rededicated according to her ideas. New hospitals were founded in accordance with the principles she espoused. Dorothea Dix died in New Jersey at the age of 85 in a hospital that had been established in her honor. She was buried in Mount Auburn Cemetery located in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Thus ends my presentation for today. My next video will air on the second Thursday or Friday of next month. Please view my video and ask someone to view it too. My presentations can be found on LinkedIn under Renee D. Waring, on Facebook under Waring Communications, LLC, on Twitter under @ReneeWaring, and on YouTube under smallcaseR.smallcaseWarring. I am the founder of Uniquely and Wonderfully Made Ministries. My name is Renee D. Waring, and I am the Warrior Warring.